instead of less than 3. Hello, Mr. Jackson. How you doing? Can you hear me, Jackson? I feel like I'm at a seance. Jackson, if you can hear me, give me a sign.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Let me turn down the crowd noise, at least on my end. Can you say that again?
I said, how are y'all doing?
Oh, wait. I think I pushed the wrong lever. Give me 1 second here.
Okay.
I really have a convoluted setup tonight. Playing with some new equipment. Okay. Say it again, William.
How y'all doing?
Pretty good. Can you tell us, can you give us maybe let's say 2 minutes tops on your kids thing that you were telling me about earlier, and then we'll share the rest of it in the newsletter or the email that will go out after this.
Well, to be totally transparent, it's just not mine. It's me and Aida. Aida's here too.
So in 2 minutes, tell us about what this meetup is and who's it for. He's not talking about our meetup. He's talking about ones for younger people.
Yes. So it's the kids meetup where we get together with the kids. We do some blogging and some WordPress stuff intermittently, but we also in between we put together some STEAM activities, so some science, technology, engineering, math activities, just to make it fun for them and change it up so it's not the same thing every month. And each month at the end, we do ask them what they'd like to see the following month. So next month they wanted to see some blogging, and they're going to be sharing their own website. So we welcome any kids between the ages of 6 to 13, because we have teenagers that come and join us too, to come and join us every month. It's the third Tuesday of every month.
Yes.
Excellent. So make sure to send me the information and we'll share that in the newsletter.
Great.
Sure will. Thank you for allowing us to share what we do, and from 6 to 13, and learn about different types of technology and sharing their blogs and writing. And we try to have a good time and make them laugh and learn at the same time.
Sounds like something I try to do with my kids, but I just throw them a piece of toast in the morning and just walk. Yeah, so there's a number of people coming in now. Zoom is refreshing pretty slowly, so they'll be gradually coming in. Is making sure I see David, I see Valerie, I see Taco, and I know Gary is here somewhere. I saw him. So
yeah, I saw him too.
What's that? Yeah, there he is. There he's waving. So I just wanted to let everybody know, I see different people. I see people outside. I see people inside. I see people, hopefully that's not a Turkish prison that I see for that one gentleman over there. But looks like, how many people here, if you want to practice by, we're going to practice a little bit. If there's anybody not in the South Florida area, I want you to use Zoom, click on your reactions button, and just go ahead and raise your hand. Anybody who is outside of the South Florida area. Taco, that means you too. Yes. So that hand you just raised is important. So when we call for questions and answers for speakers, whenever that is going to be, that is the primary way that we are going to have you just raise your hand and we'll call on you. Now, for one of our speakers, you'll be probably able to raise your hand more or less during the presentation because it's more of a question and answers. Okay, now that everybody's got their hand up, let's practice putting it down. No, that's the wrong finger. You need the, okay, there you go. All right, that was awfully rude. All right. So, wow. Okay, great. So there'll be 2 ways we will be able to try to ask questions. The live way that we're going to try the best is that we're going to try to raise our hand, but I'll let you know when you can raise your hand, because our first speaker, you'll be able to raise your hand more or less during his talk, because his talk is more of a question and answer anyway. But for the other parts, we're going to let the speakers do their presentations. And at the end, we're going to have some brief questions and answers. We have a lot to pack in the next 13 hours. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I've been told 2 hours. So we really need to pack it in tonight. So we'll keep our question and answer sessions pretty compact. And this is probably the most you'll ever hear from me for the most part, unless I'm doing the quiz show at the end. We have a trivia show at the end of the meetup. I picked something non-WordPress themed tonight. And the only clue I'll give you is that the older you are, the better your chances. You don't hear that much in the society lately, especially with COVID around. So it's refreshing. Now, make sure you have chat. Our primary communication when we're not doing voice is the Slack chat. Make sure to go ahead and just say where you're from. And remember, this is a family-friendly event, so hell does not count. Of course, if you're in my house, it may, maybe an exception. But yes, so is there anybody here from a meetup that is outside the US besides Taco? Raise your hand, please. Taco, we'll get to you in a minute. Dana, can you hear me, Dana? Okay, maybe Dana is just frozen hands up. That's okay. She's just giving me a high five and I'm leaving her hanging. Nikita, can you hear me? Nakia, sorry. I'm horrible with names. I have the worst job.
Yes, Nakia.
I have the worst job. My wife's Jamaican and it took me 3 months to get her name right. So it's not even.
Well, you got it right. Most people butcher my name.
Listen, I'm bad and I'm white. Just American, never been out of my country very much. So it's just like very, very bad. Where are you from?
Oh.
Don't worry, we'll keep this short. You were outside the US, right?
No, I'm from Jacksonville. Jacksonville group.
Oh yes, I heard they were coming by lately. Did you? Please give a favorable report back, and we would love to. I know you all have regular meetups, so I think next month we'll do it on a Thursday, so you may be able to come by. So thanks for coming by, and fill out the comment card on your way out, I guess.
I sure will.
I know we have multiple people outside of the US visiting us today, but there's so many people on my Zoom screen, I can't seem to find them. So we'll probably introduce them later. We have approximately at least 6 to 7 WordPress meetups here tonight. Most of them from Florida, but I know one from Taiwan. I saw somebody here from Taiwan, the WordPress meetup there. And I know there's 1 or 2 from Vegas and New York, if I remember correctly. So we have people coming in. We still have people coming in now. Guy, what meetup group are you from again? I love to catch Guy unprepared.
I'm here from Southwest Florida, Naples, Fort Myers.
Yeah. So Guy, myself, and a few others are the ones that really got this started. And I don't even remember when the first one was, Guy. I think it was like to say October, but I don't know if you remember. But Guy has been instrumental in helping me, along with some other people, allocate speakers for this evening and for the coming months, especially next month. Next month might be a marketing beginner Gutenberg month. We'll see. Oh, that's a horrible sounding soup, but it sounds like a good meetup. So we'll talk about that near the end. We have 4 speakers here tonight. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to share my screen for a little bit longer, but we have 4 speakers here tonight: Taco, Gary, Valerie, and David. Not necessarily in that order, because that was a quick Photoshop job that you're looking at right there. We'll let each speaker introduce themselves, take a few minutes before they speak or we get in their presentations, where they're from geographically, where they're from company-wise, and allow them to get into that. I just want to remind everyone that if you are wearing any sort of WordPress t-shirt, or I'll say tech t-shirt maybe, you should follow the directions. Go to wpgame.show, follow directions there, and see if you can post your picture up there. We're going to do this for the next 20 minutes. So you have 20 minutes. And I'd like to remind people, we had an incident. So make sure you go off camera and change your shirt, then come back on camera, or turn your camera off. See how that works? That's called common decency. So if you want to go ahead and send your picture, we're going to do a random dry t-shirt contest, and one person who submits a photo with their t-shirt will win a prize from GoDaddy Pro. And we'll take care of that random drawing while the other speakers are speaking. Use the Zoom chat for questions for speakers. Start off with the word question : so we can easily spot it. And if we miss your question and we still have time to cover it, just feel free to repeat it again, because it is like watching the stock market right now in that chat room. Somebody needs to take a serious chill pill and slow this down. Yes. Am I doing this right? Yes. Unless I'm asking my wife that question and it's a completely different answer for a majority of the time. So once again, thanks for joining the WordPress Mega Meetup. While I'm letting people in, I'm going to let Taco introduce himself. And let's see. I ask him to unmute.
I should unmute, right? Yeah.
Yes. Go
That
ahead and
seems to help.
introduce yourself, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Taco Verdonschot. Please forget about my last name because none of you will pronounce this correctly ever. So that is why I go by Taco Verdo everywhere online. I am local to a beautiful town called Wijchen in the Netherlands. And yes, that is in Europe. So that means it's well past midnight here. And well, I couldn't say no to David's invitation to join today. So
I blackmailed
here
him.
I am.
Blackmailed him. And just to remind people before he goes any further, yes, this whole meetup is going to be recorded. So if you happen to, if there's some interesting information that comes out of his mouth, you don't need to ask to repeat him, because through the wonders of technology, you can have him playing in your head over and over again later. So I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Sure, no problem. And the last thing you asked me to tell is what company I'm with. Well, as you probably noticed by some subtle branding, I'm working with Yoast and have been for 7.5 years now.
Couldn't
Yeah. I try to do this very, very subtle.
branding.
So let me share my screen, see if technology is friendly today, because, sometimes that happens. Share, no video clips, no sound. My sweet voice is all you need to hear.
I'm falling asleep already for good reasons.
So David asked me to tell you a little thing about SEO, and yes, it is Taco Tuesday. Thank you for that remark. However, it's Wednesday here, so you're just 40 minutes late with your company.
Thinking like an American.
So while you line up your questions, because please do so already. I'm very happily interrupted, as you probably already noticed. I will go through some stuff regarding SEO because, what's new in SEO? And in order to explain what's new in SEO, we need to understand the very first thing about SEO, and that is, what does Google want? And I'm specifically talking Google here because, as you probably know, Google has an insane market share when it comes to search, and that is globally about 90%. Bing is doing okay-ish with roughly 4%. And then there are some other search engines that no one ever uses unless you're targeting a specific country, like Russia or China. So for most people, we're talking Google. So today we'll be talking Google. So what does Google want? And the most important question is, did anything change in what Google wants? Because what's new in SEO is directly related to what Google wants. And they still want the very same thing they've always wanted. And that is making the world's information universally accessible and useful. You can differ from that if you want your site to rank in Google, if you want to play the SEO game, you need to make sure that your site is universally accessible and useful, and that it has information and that it's organized. So what's new in SEO? Well, nothing. The same thing we've been saying for at least the past 10 years still holds true. And if you've ever watched a presentation by anyone at Yoast, you've heard the term holistic SEO before. And holistic SEO means that you are not improving a single aspect of your website to rank higher, but that you are improving all the important aspects. And the ultimate goal, obviously, is to make a website fulfill its users' needs on all levels. And that's not just providing the right information at the right time, but it's also being easy to navigate and safe to use. And if you want to reach that, there's at least 4 aspects that you should focus on. Obviously, that's good technical SEO. If your website's in a technically bad shape, is slow, is unsafe, that's not helping. You need good quality content. And you need to structure your site well, because you can have all the content you want, but if your visitors are unable to find that content, so is Google. You need a great user experience. And again, you need to keep your site secure. And I'll translate this to WordPress terms, and that is update, update, update.
Update.
Test
Sorry,
and update.
This was on. Oh my God.
Yep, it is. So is there nothing new? Well, yes, there is new stuff in SEO.
Thanks so much for joining me today. If this is
So
your first time
what are
here,
we?
please subscribe to
Ooh.
the channel
Hold on
and
one
check
second.
out my other videos. If this is your second or third or fourth time being
Wait a minute. That
Yep, I'll unmute myself. All right. So what is new in SEO? Well, there's 3 things I wanted to highlight. And they're not particularly new, but they are becoming increasingly important. And the first of that is site structure. Because the web exists a lot, well, it exists longer every year, obviously. And that means websites exist for a long time. Over time, anyone who has their own website will know that you change stuff, you add stuff, maybe your focus changes over time. And if you don't pay attention to the way that your website is structured, it will become this odd monster on the web. And it will become harder and harder to find all the information. So you need to work on keeping your site structure clean. That in itself is an entire presentation, and I was supposed to leave room for the other speakers. So that's why I put in a short link that should be fairly easy to remember, screenshot, copy, paste, whatever. Go look at site structure, and in 2021, improve your site's structure. The next, well, I shouldn't click that link, you know, because that's not really helping at all. But this is where you will end up. Thank you, presentation, for going.
Taco, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there,
Yes.
on my screen, it's been on the same slide for a while. Is that accurate?
No, it is not.
It says, what does Google want? I don't know if it's just me or not.
Probably not, because this is a problem that Mac has. And I never experienced it before, but I know it's somewhere in the power saving options. Let's see if I can quickly fix that. Otherwise, we'll do that without a presentation, and I will just drop the links in the chat, because that's then as
Yeah, the others are
easy.
seeing that too, so it wasn't just me. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
no.
point that out.
Let's
I'll take this
see.
opportunity though to remind people
Yes.
that if you do want to submit a picture to WP Game Show, if you're wearing a WordPress t-shirt, you can win a prize later. So anyway,
Let's see.
and we do have a trivia game
I-
show at the end of the night.
I know there's this setting, but I'm not sure where it's hidden. So let's do this without presentation. I will just drop the links in the chat because,
Whatever works best for you.
yeah, that's probably easiest. Let me then find my screen again, because now it's all over the place and obviously that isn't helpful. So what I was saying is that we are talking about 3 topics, and the first one is site structure. So in 2021, work on your site structure. And in order to do that, I have this beautiful link I will now paste in the chat. And you can visit that after, unless I'm very boring. So the second thing you should work on in 2021 is learn about structured data. Because as smart as Google seems, it's not. I'm now seeing a shared screen. Oh, right. Yes, you're doing that for me. It's a lot to read. I wouldn't do that right now. So as smart as Google seems, it's really not. Google is unable to recognize a recipe on a recipe website, unless you specifically tell it, hey, Google, this is a recipe, these are ingredients, and these are the steps to make my recipe, make my dish. So there's a system for that, and it's built with a couple of, it's open source, and it's called schema.org. And it's a way of having structured data. And that structured data is telling search engines what is on a page. And again, that in itself is a topic for an entire night. So there's a link for you to follow after this meetup. And the URL is in the chat again. And the third thing I wanted to highlight, oh, fun. Hey, Google works. So the third thing I want to highlight for now, changes in SEO in 2021, is that Core Web Vitals is coming. And Core Web Vitals is basically a new way for Google to measure the quality of your website. It looks at a couple of features, and that's the largest contentful paint. And that means how long it takes for the largest piece of content to appear on the screen. It's looking for the first input delay, so how long it takes until it interacts on the first interaction by a user, and the cumulative, I'm not a native speaker, sorry, layout shift, and that is the visual stability of your site. So if a lot of stuff changes while it's loading, that's not a very good experience for your users. And Google is actually measuring this. And again, this comes with a nice link I will paste for you in the chat. So there's more to read. So while I'm keeping an eye on the chat right now, if you have any questions, do put them in there.
We are
happy to
we'll
answer.
help you with the questions. We're monitoring the chat. So you let us
Perfect.
know when you've got some openings. Like, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Your attention is already scattered as it is. I know. Believe me.
All right. So there's 3 more things I wanted to highlight, and that is what is new in Yoast SEO, because you probably have heard of our plugin. And it's actually a useful tool to help you with some of the technical stuff, help you with the content writing, and help you with the site structure. So I'm talking about the free version mostly because who needs premium? We'll talk about that later if you ask questions about it. But one of the things that we've been doing, and I can maybe use the raise hand feature here. Who of you is able to speak more than one language? I'm seeing a few hands raised.
I'm
Right.
0.5. I can't even speak English very well.
Turkish. I can speak Turkish.
Who said
Perfect.
that?
See?
Oh,
Yeşim
Yeşim.
from Naples. From Naples. And I know you, Daniel. Many times in the WordPress conferences I saw. And I speak Turkish.
Sweet. So we have a few
I am.
polyglots here because that's the term for people who speak more than one language. And we now have extended language support in Yoast SEO, which means that we are getting better at recognizing language-specific features to even further optimize your text. So I'm seeing Spanish, German, and Hebrew. They're all supported, and obviously English is supported as well. Yeah, you're finding the feature per language, the first post. Yeah, that's indeed what we are talking about here. The next thing Polish also supported. The next thing I wanted to talk about is integrations, because it becomes more important if you're using multiple plugins that they properly work together. But we also added a few features that work with partners. Who of you has heard about Zapier before, or Zapier? Yeah, I see a few hands as well. Zapier is a tool that will allow you to automate stuff, and we've partnered with them. And Zapier now allows you to act as soon as you publish a post. So you can, for example, automatically tweet when you've published a new post or page, and you can do that through the Yoast SEO integration. We've also partnered with SEMrush to help you work on your SEO. And we've partnered, and that's actually one I'm very happy with a page builder called Elementor, which is growing ridiculously fast. And they now have a proper integration with Yoast SEO as well. And then the last feature, which is a premium one that I needed to touch on because it really relates to what happens in SEO in 2021, is internal linking suggestions. We've made a fairly big change in our plugin recently, and that now allows us to better analyze your website and to really suggest related content. So if you're writing a post on a specific topic, Yoast SEO will help you create that internal linking structure by suggesting related posts to your current post that you're editing or writing. And that's really helpful. That, however, is a premium feature, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So that was very quickly some updates on what's happening in SEO. And now I'm hoping that you have a ton of questions that I can answer. So I'll redirect all the hard questions, but
so the
bring on the easy ones.
First question, Taco, is that you can't share screen.
Yeah, this seems to be some bug with
Okay,
Mac
no problem.
OS.
No
that
problem. Just want to
freezes.
be sure.
Yeah,
I'll be your. I don't know what appendage this is, but I'll be it.
Screen assistant. Yeah, I like that.
So, okay, so Gene has been keeping track. Say hi, Gene. Just where are you, Gene?
Hey, Taco.
Yes, Gene, by the
Hey.
way, is our co-organizer for one of our co-organizers for the meetup. Thank him later because he'll be cleaning up after a mess I'll probably end up creating. So here's our first question, Taco. Can we create our own custom structured data, or is the data set by Google? And this is asked by, oh, Gene, I know Gene told me, but I'm not. I'm.
It was actually asked by me.
Oh, that's
Well,
okay. Good.
that's
Good. I should have had
well,
you
that-
ask the
that's
question. Then I'm sorry.
yeah, that's a good question. So schema.org is open source, so you can contribute to it, but it is sort of a fixed standard. So you can contribute to that standard like you can contribute to WordPress or any other open source project. But yeah, it gives you guidelines on what you can use on your site to tell Google, hey, this is about a certain topic or whatever. So maybe it's interesting, David, since you're sharing screen, is to show schema.org for a second.
Did I spell it right?
Yes, you did. Yeah, so if you click on schemas in the top, you will see that there's the option to go for full list of types shown on one page, and that will give you a general idea. Yeah, I think it's the second link on that page. Yeah, so this gives you like the most global overview of all the things that you can add, and the further you click down, the more you can see. So for example, if we're talking about an organization, if we click on organization, you'll see listed what you can add in schema in that for an organization. A lot of this is already done by the Yoast SEO plugin, but you can add on to it if you're a developer and yeah, interested in expanding what's offered.
So you can expand it. Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Very nice. Thank you.
All right. So, Gene, was there any other questions in there that we spotted, since I've got a million windows open?
Yeah, let me start. There was one from, there you go, Chuck Hardrick. Does Yoast work better with certain WP themes?
Oh, that's a hard question. No, but
No, but
it should work with all the themes. However, if you want to use the Yoast SEO breadcrumbs feature, your team needs to support that. So that's the but. So there are a few that work better, or you need to make a child theme and then add to that. But it should work with all the themes for all the other functionality.
What does it require for breadcrumbs to be there? Is it something that you have to embed yourself usually, or does Yoast automatically find the beginning of WP content or post or something?
Well, that's you have to add in your theme where you want the breadcrumb to show up, and then you have to style it, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, just some people have more experience with Yoast than others. Actually, on my experience is only medium. Usually when it comes to photos and images and photo galleries, because that's where I'm overlapping with Yoast most of the time. Elizabeth has her hand raised. She is a lovely WordPress WordCamp Miami organizer and Meetup. She likes long walks on the beach. Elizabeth, please, can you share us your question for Taco?
I don't have any questions for Taco.
Oh, your hand is up.
It was up from before. Sorry.
Get out of the rigor mortis. Put it down, woman.
We should have practiced more with lowering hands. Yeah.
I did post Natalia's question in the chat from she had asked on meetup.com 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so we do have a question?
Yeah.
Can you read it off for me?
Sure. Marketing question for the meeting. What is the deal with Yoast title suggestions? Every time you publish a new post, our Yoast score stays on red if the title is 5 words or less. I have been working on making the titles longer so that they turn green, but will this hurt us in the long run? Are potential clients turned off by wordy titles on search results?
Well, the short answer is no. And I would actually love to turn that around, because one would really have to convince me that you're able to properly describe the topic that you're talking about in less than 5 words. It's if you are, I mean, I'm assuming that your page, your blog post is an incredible resource for a specific topic. And I can't see how you would be able to describe that in less than 5 words.
Cats are awesome.
Right. And 200,000 other people write that on the internet an hour.
Okay.
I do have there's a couple of more questions from the chat. This one's from Rob. Can you repeat your advice on how to make Google recognize a recipe as an example?
Yeah, so the easiest way, and I'm not sure if I'm already allowed to say that, but Gutenberg is a good thing when we're talking about schema. I'm not sure if there are people who are not a big fan of Gutenberg. I hope to change that tonight, because Gutenberg works with blocks, works with structure, and that's exactly what you need for, well, structured data. So there are blocks out there that have schema embedded. Obviously, the blocks that Yoast SEO adds have schema embedded, but there are a lot more that embed schema into their blocks so that you don't have to do anything to make sure that Google recognizes it. So I'm now going to say something I probably shouldn't, but my boss is asleep anyway. So there will be a recipe block in Yoast SEO fairly soon, and that will do all the schema for you.
Is that particular to recipes, or is there more schema specifics? I know there's schemas for, like we just saw, there's schemas for just about everything.
Yeah. There is schema for pretty much everything. Currently, we have in Yoast SEO, we have a few blocks that have the schema embedded. Another one that I'm not supposed to talk about yet is a jobs listing block that will be released soon. So we'll slowly add more of those blocks also to Yoast SEO to make sure that they are 100% on par with the schema documentation, and that, well, you don't have to know any of this and it will still be done for you.
So do we know what Google Stories are?
I was just about to ask that.
What's that? Yeah. Is Yoast working with elements to enhance Google Stories? I know what those words mean individually.
Yeah, so I think this is mostly referring to the web stories, which is a new thing in Google, but also in WordPress. There's a fantastic web stories plugin by the Google team, and yes, we are working on integrating with that as well.
In a couple sentences, can you explain what stories are for the people who may not be familiar, even in general?
Personally, I didn't take a deep dive, but it's a different way of presenting content on the web.
Didn't
It's
it get
more
started in Instagram or something like that? I saw Instagram stories, and then it's become a running joke on the web that stories is going to get into every app or something.
Well, yeah, it's very progressive web app-like behavior of your website. It's interesting to look into. They told me I didn't have the time personally to do so, so I'm not going to say anything that I'm not 100% sure of.
Boy, my wife would really appreciate you. How should you
go? It's only because you're recording. Don't worry.
I get everything I say recorded that way in a trial. It's anyway. How should you go about writing post copy with Yoast guidance in mind?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
It's Gary's asking how should you go about writing post copy with Yoast guidance in mind? So you've got Yoast guiding you there,
Yeah.
but, or I guess, how strictly are you following it? What's your general advice when people are trying to write copy while the Yoast is judging them?
So write copy first. Ignore all the feedback you get. Write your copy. And then you have these nice hints on the side, the red, orange, and green bullets that will help you optimize it after. So that would be a second step. If you, with every word you write, you look at what's happening in the sidebar, you will go crazy in no time because it changes all the time. All the percentages change as you add text. So write first, optimize later. Well, before you publish, but write first, optimize after. Over time, you will start noticing that you're already changing your writing style because you are, you know that you'll get flagged for certain things, like not having subheadings, like having too long paragraphs, etc. That it will really influence your writing style. The last thing I want you to do is make every bullet go green on every single page or post that you publish. It's a tool. It's not as long as I get everything green, I will rank. So Yoast SEO definitely helps you in ranking better, but it's a tool. And as long as the overall score is green, you're fine. And if it's not on your contact page or on your terms of service page, please don't spend any time optimizing those. Focus on the pages that matter.
Kind of like children. Here's another question for you. When will Yoast SEO be able to detect multi-byte strings like traditional Chinese? Currently, it can't count the amount of words correctly or accurately in Chinese and Japanese.
Hopefully soon. We have a team of linguists working, well, I would say 24/7, but that's not allowed, but working full-time on more support for more languages. We've recently added a couple of right to left languages, which was already a challenge because, well, as with most European and American products, our focus was kind of left to right languages. So we're currently researching that, hopefully soon, but it's hard. It's very different from Latin script.
We won't hold you to it, but I would imagine in 2021 there would have to be some sort of updates in the language area, at least for Yoast, because you guys do pretty good work when keeping up with that stuff.
Yeah, we released 13 new languages last year. Well, we didn't invent new languages, but support for 13 languages.
Well, that's the best way to support more languages. Just invent them first.
Yeah.
And then you're like that.
Yes. And I'm not going to make this promise, but I know that one of the goals for 2021 is support for Japanese.
Yes. I imagine, is the Japanese SEO world so much tougher or much more difficult than the American or than the different other languages?
The Japanese language is very difficult to computationally do without like blowing up the size of the plugin.
So there's size of plugin considerations too with all that code.
Yes, that's also why parts are moving to a SaaS solution in Premium, because it would be impossible to ship everything for all the languages to everyone, especially if you're not on an amazing host like GoDaddy.
So here's maybe what the last question will be, since I'm not seeing anything more, and Gene, double check me on that if you can. Google AMP has been a thing last year, and it was either good or controversial depending on how close you follow it and what your opinions are. is there any, what kind of level of compatibility does there exist with Yoast? And does it affect SEO in general in any, what are the biggest effects? I should word it this way because I'm giving you the best type of question, and where, in your opinion, what are the most impactful ways Google AMP could have on your site, positive or negative, in your opinion?
So Google AMP is,
I
I
think
think
saying
it
AMP all
may
this
be,
time. Damn it.
yes,
Sorry.
yeah,
go
you
ahead.
could, yeah.
Right.
I think it is one of the ways that we move the web forward. Because of the way and the philosophy behind it, and especially now that it's more open than it was before, it's definitely a standard that is going to do a lot for the web in the near future, which is why, and I'm actually very proud to say so, one of my colleagues, Jono Elderson, is on the advisory board for AMP. So he is directly involved with the future of AMP, and I would say thereby shaping the future of the internet.
I dropped the link to the WordPress. I picked one link to drop, and I dropped the link to the WordPress plugin into the chat. If you don't know anything about Google AMP, then please, you can kind of backtrack a little bit, bookmark that WordPress plugin, and you can go from there, and figure out exactly what it works. It basically, I think summarizing in a good way, is Google basically kind of caches your site or as a copy of your page, and when you go to search results, it'll go to that first, but it's done that way for faster search results and potentially better rankings, because I think it also strips some of the extra stuff that your site may or may have. But effectively it's Google's, but I mean, technically speaking, I guess the main controversy around it is that you are not, when someone clicks on a link and goes to what they think might be your page, it may not be, at least technically, your website. It could be Google's version of it. And depending on how you fall in that spectrum, it's kind of like clicking on Apple News. Sometimes you click on a link and you expect a web browser to open up and slap Apple, because then it goes to some news app you don't have. It's like that, but probably even a slightly better experience, at least a better experience in terms of that. Oh, okay.
I've posted a link with a little more information. That's articles on yoast.com about AMP.
Okay, so this is awkward. I have a question for my daughter, but I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, Olivia, so I might need you to unmute yourself, but I'm going to read the question as it is because I'm required by state law. Is there any different things you need to do for different blogs, websites, other web projects? Can you be a little more specific on that, Olivia? What exactly are you talking regarding Yoast or SEO wise?
Like for SEO and recipes, you say, yeah, just have the recipe blog here and the ingredients and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, hold up, how about a blog or like something like that? So I was wondering if there's any recommendations for a blog, or especially with what I do, a photo gallery or album. Yeah, my question.
So I guess what she's asking is that, recipe sites are great, but there are different, what if you're just doing a regular blog or a photo gallery? I imagine blog, it's all in the writing, probably there a bit, but she does a lot of image galleries too. And there's very little text, but it's a lot of images.
Well, yes.
What is your recommendation there, Yoast or otherwise?
Well, photography SEO is particularly hard because most photographers think in images and hate writing. Google, however, doesn't really understand images yet and relies on writing. So creating a website for a photographer, or that's photography heavy, is definitely a challenge, and it will include writing content, because as it is right now, that is still the best way to get it ranking. With regards to schema, there is definitely a specific schema for blogs. Most of that is default set by Yoast SEO, because that's the easy stuff. Let's put it that way. But as well, any SEO I've asked a question ever about a specific website says it depends, because it does. SEO is not, there's not one silver bullet that will get all the websites ranking. It's not one trick that will work for all. It depends all the time on everything, on your site, on your competition, on what you're trying to rank for, on all the factors out there. So the best thing you can do is to use the second translation of SEO, and that is seriously effortful optimization. Put in that effort, educate yourself, learn about SEO, read the blog posts, follow the courses, and work with that, or hire someone to do it for you.
Well, she's my daughter, so she's going to learn how to do it herself.
Well, or leverage your father into doing it for you.
No, I already see enough of her. But yeah, but we are having people in high school now, like starting to talk about SEO, and it's funny, but it's funny to have those conversations, because, you know, they are publishing on the web, and they are beginning to, like, one of the reasons why they do start their own stuff is because they can't get enough traction or audience. They want to expand their audience as much as possible. And it's funny when high school kids start talking about, like, trying to break through into Google, you know, Google rankings and that sort of thing. And they talk about SEO as well, but like SEO on TikTok, for example, is, believe it or not, a discussed topic. Like, what gets you to the top? What does their formula do? And a lot of it's trends, but some of it's also based on titles and stuff like that too. So it's kind of, or hashtags. I'm not even going to pretend to understand what Instagram and what TikTok do.
Yeah.
But yes, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that finishes our questions. Taco, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Is there any Google updates that we should be aware of in the next 6 months that have been rumored coming? Anything that would drastically shift anybody who currently has a good amount of rankings? Because I'm asking because I do. One of my site did, one of Envire Gallery's blogs generates quite a bit of incoming traffic.
Yeah, so the only thing I know by heart now is that Google announced that Core Web Vitals will start playing a bigger role in May 2021. So that's coming May. So that's definitely something you want to take a look at.
Can you drop a link or something, because if somebody knows very little of what that even is, at least they can a place to start in terms of it. You said it was in May, right?
Yes, absolutely.
More or less. Yeah, and I know that you're just repeating what Google is hinting at. Anything can change, but you know, we want to be able to this is based on, this is a more of a performance thing, right? Or is this?
Yeah, this is all user experience. So it's really the old thing was mobile first. That's never going away. But the next thing is really the next step in optimizing for your users to provide the best experience.
So it sounds like, I remember, I'm old school, so I remember at least 3 stages here that Google's gone through. One has just been content and relevancy. Second has been mobile. And third is now not even as much content as much as just your site perform well and is providing a good user experience. And I guess part of that also has to do with, you know, your content still being relevant and all that, but there's a lot of, like, it could be a rich treasure trove, but if it's as slow as hell and you're not Wikipedia, then you're probably going to have some problems.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why we've been talking about holistic SEO since forever, because in the end, in order to rank first, you need to be the best result. That's it. It's that simple. All
right. So if people wanted to learn more, obviously the Yoast SEO I mean, the Yoast site is good, but where can people follow you particularly on social?
You can follow me on Twitter, and that would be @TacoVerdo. And I'll probably start writing on Yoast.com somewhere this year because they finally convinced me that I should really do that.
Oh no, they have enough blackmail for you on you.
Yep.
Well, thank you again for answering all these questions. I know you have been staying up late, being able, because I'm not sure if anybody's aware, but you're where again are you for the people that just came in?
Yeah, in the beautiful town of Wiegen in the Netherlands.
Yes, it's so beautiful. He's using a backdrop to hide it from us. Yes.
Well,
thank you. Mhm.
okay, I have to say that.
Mhm.
So there's this COVID thing you probably noticed.
Mhm.
And we are since March this year required to work from home. So I turned my garden shed into my home office. However, that used to be our storage room. Well, not used to be, it still is. And this is the only way I don't have to clean out the entire garden shed and still be able to do meetings like these.
Oh, that's brilliant. I don't have to clean my office. I just need to talk to my wife through Zoom from now on. That's perfect. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you very much. We are now going to switch because we're so jam-packed tonight. We're going to switch over to Valerie. Valerie, can you hear me? Again, I feel like I'm at some sort of seance. Valerie, send me a sign.
Yeah.
There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. So
all right.
we're going to call this part 10 minutes with Valerie, because Valerie's going to she's going to cram 10 minutes worth of information that's going to blow our minds. The first question is, Valerie, what are you going to show us?
Okay, so I like to start off any of my sessions with the affirmation. So tonight's affirmation is going to go with what I'm talking about is I can overcome anything by taking action. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about myself because I know a lot of you, but then a whole lot of you I don't know. I've been in the business of changing lives and helping people for about 3 decades. What I do is help people learn and utilize resources available, which is how I found WordPress. Back in 2009, I believe it was, with Women Intelligently Networking. I have to do a little bit of name dropping. Kathy Druin, which is with Atlanta WordPress, WordCamp Atlanta, and Cindy Ellsbury, who is the best virtual assistant out there. We were all in a group together, and Kathy Druin, she was talking about this amazing new thing where you could build your own website. And so, hold on, I have to go back to my notes a little bit. So I'm finding out about this technology, and it's one of those big life aha moments because I am not a techie. I don't speak tech at all. A lot of times what you guys are saying to me goes over my head. This is what I know, that the reason why we're doing all of this is for the human connection at the end of it. So we build these things. I help solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. Most of the time, small productions under 5 people. And we build it, we think that it'll come, but it doesn't happen that way. People have to know what you do. And in order for you to have a good balance, you have to have a good plan. So my role in your life is to help you plan, strategize, and implement, whether it be conversation, whether it be you needing to outsource something to someone else. I don't specialize in SEO. I was glad to learn a lot about what Taco said went way over my head because I don't know any of that. What I know is that if you do what he says, then the people will come. Well, would they come to your site and they put in their information, that's considered a touch. Okay, so hold on a second. I can ramble on about this forever. So let me go back over to this. The community, WordPress. I came for the knowledge, but I stayed for the people. We have a culture where that all of us, we give back to the community and we give way more than we could ever, number one, get back in return, or number two, give back in return. So there are two elements that I want to speak about. David, how am I on time? How am I on time?
Let's say 7 minutes.
Okay, good. Okay, so the personal service equation, there's two parts to it. There's one, there's being seen, and there's two, knowing your own numbers. I go with J. Conrad Levinson, who was the godfather of guerrilla marketing way back before Google was that popular. Look, let's see. Yeah, way back before Google was that popular, this became my Bible. Tell me.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
What'd you say, David?
I said it was huge. Referring
Okay.
to be clear, referring to the book.
It's huge. It's huge. So the information in it, he took all of his guerrilla marketing. This is called the guerrilla marketing attack, and this is where I took all of this and I built my foundation from this. So he talks about the rule of 9 or the power of 9. It's about being seen. So you have someone who goes to your site, you've automated it, and they're seeing your information. They're seeing your information, right? Those are impressions. Then the question is, how many times does that person need to see you to actually see you? Well, there was a year-long study that he participated with, that he got the information back, and it takes 3 times for a person to see you 1 time. Okay, so then the question is, how many times does a person have to see you before they make a decision to buy from you, buy whatever it is, read your information, take you as a credible source, refer you to somebody else? I use the words buy and sell. You put in whatever words you need to make it believable for you. Okay, so there's that. You need 3 times. He says it takes 9 times, the power of 9. But if it takes you 3 times to be seen the 1 time, then 3 times 9 is 27. 27 times does the person need to see? Am I talking too much? Are you motioning?
I'm doing the math.
Oh, doing the math. Yeah. No, I did the math for you. I did the math. 9 times 3 is 27. Yes. And so then that 27 instances is personal touches. A lot of times you see that now it's becoming so inundated, especially with all of us being home with COVID, especially with all of the new brands and the new things that are emerging. It's more important that we're seen now more than ever, which means you got to be louder than your competition, or you can, your competition, they're competing for time. You're competing for that resource. Oh no, I just blanked out. Sorry about that. Hold on 1 second. I'm coming back to this. So there's that part, the being seen. Then the second part of that is knowing your numbers. So if your ultimate goal, and I have this is one that I drew a long time ago. This was, so I do a lot of on paper because it's easier than me trying to share screen. And I wasn't able to coordinate with my virtual assistant, who's the best in the business, Cindy Ellsbury. This is pretty quick that I put this together. So this is from a few years ago. The desired income at that time for the client was $150,000. I'm talking just in gross numbers. I'm not talking in net numbers. That's how much the person wanted to make in a year, 150,000 gross. Okay, no problem. How much money is one customer worth to you? So the one customer at a time, average spends $150,000. I mean, $150. Okay, $150, and you want to get to $150,000 for 1 year. You got to do all kinds of math with that. So you work the math, and once you know the number, so here's the thing is, because the PSE, personal service equation, once you know how much money that person is worth immediately, short term, and lifetime, so that person may recommend you. So then you have referrals going into that. There's all of this stuff, keeping it very simple. Once you know what that person is worth, then that person becomes a different type of person to you, a different, more important person, when you attach a dollar amount. That's just the way we're wired. So then you go to the being seen. I know talking to you is going to give me $150, but I got to talk to you 9 times, but I got to talk to you 3 times, 9 times. I'm going to make sure that I don't forget to talk to you on a regular basis so that you don't forget me. And that's where the power lies. That gives you the edge of the competition, because yes, your competition can probably outspend you. Your competition may be able to outthink you, or maybe smarter than you, or maybe whatever. But I'll tell you that consistent performance. So that goes where to the I can overcome anything by taking action. That's where that goes to. So I help people plan and implement. Yes, I do. Thanks for that one. Oh, sorry, I was reading. I thought that was a note to me. And that's where we are. David, do you have any questions?
So
I think succinctly.
I'm sorry?
Did I cover? I think I covered it succinctly. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm probably going to have to go over that again with some sort of medication, because you covered so many different points.
Well, the main point is that
all 6 of my appendages tingled.
if you know what you want to accomplish, and you know how much it's going to take for you to accomplish that, and then you know how much the people are spending, then that's all you need to know to create a plan and strategy to be effective.
So the book that you held up, that big giant book that I was referring to earlier when I said it was huge, again, I want to make that perfectly clear. The Guerrilla Marketing Attack book. What?
J. Conrad Levinson.
A couple of people in our chat group recognize that book. So I'm guessing it's a few years old, I'm guessing. Or it's incredible.
Thank you very much, Gene. I appreciate you posting that. Well, this book here is, gosh, I don't even want this. Then that really will age me, right?
Because the book was first published. How long has it been?
The book was first published maybe 2001. Yeah, so, maybe 2000, maybe.
So it's still relevant today. There's still some very business,
yes.
So you definitely would probably recommend, if somebody said, "Give me a few sentences why you would recommend that book." For my website, website business.
Oh, sorry.
I'm doing a website business. I'm doing some sort of e-commerce business, or I'm doing a personal business. It's on the web. What part of that book? Right. What part of that book would be the best way to sell it to them in a minute or two?
Well, that's a good question. So why would it be for a website business? Because the website business is still touching people. In J. Conrad Levinson,
in good ways.
Yes, in good ways, and sometimes in bad ways too. I don't know if someone.
Not talking about the bad ways. Yeah, my daughter's here.
It frames the business position because you still have your collateral, you still have your logo, you still have your branding, which I believe that David is going to be talking about later on. The importance of branding. Your importance of branding, it brings it all together full circle. And this one was just before he did the technology one. He does write one that's the guerrilla marketing for technology, but basically he's seeing the same principles. And this book condenses all of his information because I have a pretty good library of his stuff. And this is the one that I go to. Like, if I'm going to a meeting with you, David, and you're saying I'm online, I don't talk to people, I don't see people in person, you're still talking. I'm not in person with you right now, but you're online. I'm looking at you and I'm getting a feeling for your personality, and you and I were having a dialogue. So yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's just that now, instead of it being a 5-mile radius, it's now a global radius. So then you become, let's say that you're where you are, I'm where I am. I can take your circle of influence, and your circle of influence then becomes, let's say I've done a good enough job for you to refer me. That's my 5-mile radius now versus brick and mortar stores that are a 5-mile radius.
So Taco was about Taco was coming at this from tonight in terms of just making sure you are able to get out there and make connections, having the possibility, opening that door, because on the web, there's ways, but it's generally speaking, if no one knows you exist on the web, it's very hard to communicate with people.
Yes.
Next, we come to you and we say, you need to be able to understand that you can make these connections and that each connection has a value.
Oh, it's slowing down a little bit, David. I don't know if anybody else is lagging, but mine is lagging.
I don't know. I can hear you fine. But are you there?
I just heard you say fine.
Okay. So
and my whole screen's frozen except for me.
I don't know. I can see people. I think it could be Valerie.
Yeah, we look fine.
Wait a second.
I think Valerie, I think
there
it's
we
your
go.
connection. I think it's your connection.
It might be. I just got a note that said your internet connection is unstable.
Yes, like
I need to reverse the polarity.
Like my grandparents. So I think I'll summarize here, Valerie, for us, because I think we've got a good segue now. You provided an excellent segue, I think, for David's talk in terms of, like I said, with Taco provides that you have to open that door to get out to be able to even make connections in the first place. Then there are value dollar signs attached to those connections if you know how much people are willing to spend. And now but now that you can open the door, you know how important it is to get out that door and who to see. Now that we can have somebody like David explain to us more or less upon, like, kind of more or less the branding of it, how should you look and how should you shake virtually someone's hand? This analogy is falling apart pretty quickly, but I do appreciate that. And your internet connection held up for the most part. We want to thank you. Who can, if somebody wants, we already dropped a link to the book in show notes, or show notes. It's like I'm doing a podcast in the chat. If anybody wanted to follow you on Twitter and website, what would be those two things?
Okay, so my Twitter, my new website will be launching in the next 6 weeks. But my Twitter right now, I think that you added it. Hey, look at there, Gene. Thank you very much. That's my Twitter. I'm on Facebook a whole lot more than I'm on Twitter. And so I wanted to say one more thing. When you were setting up, that was perfect, the way that it goes from Taco to me to David talking about branding, because Taco was talking about the actual building, like the structure. Anytime someone goes into a brick and mortar to say, when someone's having a problem with the profit needing to get more people in, the first thing that's done is a inventory of what the four walls is missing. And so I'm going to say that probably that's where Taco was when he's talking about the site structure. The site structure is very much four walls, isn't it? When he talks about, especially with everything being blocked. And I think that I can't wait to hear what David has to say. I'm excited about that. Yard.
Well, then let's stop waiting and get David on this damn thing. Where is it? The thing is not working.
I mean, I'm here.
Yeah.
I cannot get it on fast enough. Oh, David, yes. It's the one person I can't forget their first name. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Where are you from? Well, I mean, where are you located? Or where are you broadcasting? Pick one.
I'm broadcasting from, the Bat Cave that recently relocated somewhere in Orlando.
Oh, Batman's gone beige, but okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, I'm actually, no, that's gonna get fixed soon.
That's okay.
It has to be gray. Pantone released those lovely colors. I want to get that gray in here.
That color didn't work for Obama's suit, but it works for you.
Yeah.
So I like it. Very nice. Can you go ahead and just introduce yourself and your talk title while my computer just decides which window it wants to run currently?
Yes. So the talk title tonight, what is it? Fusing WP strategies together. I don't even remember my own.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're playing Yahtzee with words. That's fine. That's great. But you know what?
Yeah.
You can pull off anything. So go right ahead. I'm even going to put my mic up so I can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lost my whole thing that I was going to put together. So this is going to be one of those ad hoc ones, but I have all my notes, so we're good. That's the most important part. So yeah, I'm David Yard. I am your bootstrap Batman, as some people have called me. Just depends on what flavor of the day you catch me. I do a lot of brooding around user experience, around customer experience, software engineering, design. That's my background, which kind of spans half my life, which is 17 years of experience. You can figure out my age from that part. I'm really, really ADHD prone these days, which is really great because now I get to research all this cool stuff my dopamine hits. And now I've figured out this whole thing when it comes to branding, right? And to kind of get me back on track in life, I figured out the best part of your marketing or doing anything when you're kind of doing funnels is to have a lovable core. So we're going to be talking about that, fusing your WordPress with your marketing together, how to make it lovable each step of the way. So drop your questions. And if you want to find me on Twitter, it's DSMY, and I'll drop the little link in here shortly. So yeah, I mean, most people have been bombarded with some sort of a funnel. You've gone to download something, you've gone to buy something, and next thing you know, you see ads chasing you everywhere online. You're wondering what in the world is happening. And it's fun because you're like, is my device listening to me? Is it, secretly overhearing my conversations and trying to woo me into buying something? And then you go through that landing page, email, or SMS thing that you have to fill out your information. And then you go through a series of things saying, hey, how you doing? Buy this thing. Here's 3 reasons why. And they eventually wear you down depending on how much you need that product at that time to eventually check out, right? And that's kind of the way in which everyone's taught to do marketing nowadays. And to the earlier point of what Valerie was saying, that 27 times or interactions for them to even be aware of you. If you really dive into that some more, you need 11 positive interactions to really make that person want to like you. And so that's another thing you have to put into your equation. It's not just Yoast saying, hey, you're typing good, this is relevant, it's easy to read, but also people saying, hey, did you write this for me or did you write this for a computer? And that affects a lot of the early or entry stage of your funnels, so to speak. And so the way in which I've approached it over the years, and most people say, hey, you don't have funnels. I have a lot of them, to the point that I don't even know where people sometimes reach out to me from. But they've always kind of taken a very similar approach. I look at the audience and the problem on 2 sides, right? Because sometimes we may say, this is the person we want to be our audience, to be our person, because they look attractive, right? The shiny object syndrome. But if we really take a step back and look at what the problem is that we're trying to solve or we have a solution for, now we can start to see where the audience really starts to balance out and where we should be in the middle of that equation. And then now the most important part that I enjoy is segmenting. And you have different parts of segmenting your funnel. If somebody's new to it, if they're just becoming aware, if they're a little bit deeper, maybe they bought an ebook or downloaded a guide. All these different things, you have ways in which you can tag people, whether you're using Zapier, if this then that, or my personal favorite, WP Fusion. It gives you a way within your CRM to keep things organized and grouped. So if someone buys a book, you can tag them with, let's say, downloaded an ebook, branding product interest, or lawn care product interest, right? And start to really build a more clearer picture of who is in your audience, who you're talking to, and what stages of each of the experience that they may be in. Doing this kind of helps you on 2 fronts. One, when you're sending people to your website, they're probably going to stick around longer because the content that you've sent to them is a lot more relevant to the areas that they're in. 2, your email open rate. Again, it falls into that same thing. That relevant content makes them want to do the thing and stick around and open it and share it and maybe purchase a product. And so how do you really tie all these things together? Well, WordPress gives us a few cool tools like tags and categories at the most basic level. where we can now start to see if we've been doing a good job of market research and mapping out the customer experience, where in which we should really start putting content and filing it under. In my case, a lot of people tend to come to my site based on a very weird key phrase, being the underdog. And I don't even remember the article that I wrote. But moving forward, I look at things that are around that avenue of being an underdog, whether that's, having hopes and dreams and being in second place and fighting to first, and other terms that may, kind of involve a little bit more of a long-term or long-tail SEO strategy. And then my categories kind of fall into that whole space, whether it's entrepreneurship, branding, design, based on my experience. And so now the conversations that I'm having, or I urge my clients to have, are around those categories and skill set and tags that they're really, really good at. Or they have a lot of expertise to share, passion to share, or a story to document along these lines as well. And then going back to our earlier point of knowing what stage a person is in, it makes it a little bit easier to really put the content out that will reach to them. If it's a beginner, you don't want to be giving them advanced topics off the jump. You want to build up. You want to give them that room to learn, grow, maybe get a quick win towards your product, especially if it's a more higher ticket item. And it all depends on what your brand is about and how you really speak to people. Now, I'm not telling you to go and rewrite all of your funnels and redo everything. What I'm saying is to really look at the storyline that you're telling people. Right? For instance, my favorite thing lately has been Red Bull. And if I were going to a landing page, I want to stay awake, but I don't want to have the jitters when I'm, awake. I don't want to feel like I'm going to crash hard at the end. Those are problems that I may have with other products, right? And I'm in the audience of people who may be a software engineer, young professional, person that's in fitness, right? College student maybe, right? Depending on the age. So those are some groups that you can really start to look at and say, oh, these are the people that may be my audience. These are the people that I'm speaking to. It's not just the 25 to 32-year-old person that lives in this particular area. It could be anywhere in the world that these people have these particular traits, particular habits, particular interests that they're seeking to follow. And of course, if you are selling a much localized product, yes, it will matter if you're targeting everywhere versus targeting locally. You definitely want to do the latter. And so after you know who you're talking to and the product that you have is there, make it easy to get. The worst thing you can do is try to bombard someone with 10,000 upsells right at the point when they've made that, decision. That in one of two ways will go either great for you, where it's a beneficial upgrade, and you've done it in a way within the user experience that it's not overwhelming. Or you've done it in a way where it's completely raising their anxiety. And they've decided that, wow, I don't even want to buy the original product because the experience after that may be even worse. And then the next step that Valerie kind of mentioned earlier was how others can get it. So the original customer may have purchased it. They told a friend. How do you make it easy for your original person to probably be rewarded in that process? And so if you're using any sort of tagging system within WordPress, like WP Fusion, for instance, keep going back to that one, you now drop these people into different segments, different tags, so to speak, and devise recipes. So if a person in the email list may have read, 3 articles underneath your brand category, you could probably drive a campaign around things that, offer a solution based on what they read. Maybe they're looking at project management. Maybe they're looking at how to build better teams and culture. Just to give you an idea, and using myself as an example. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind whenever you're building any sort of infrastructure, branding or marketing funnel-wise, is really to keep it clean and keep it simple. It's tempting to want to throw everything at the board and say, hey, everyone needs this. But a lot of times things and the best solutions that I've found have been simply because they listened. And they took time to explain it and break it down in a way where I didn't have to hunt all over the place for the information that I needed. They may have answered questions preemptively, or a question that I asked, on a forum or somewhere led someone to recommend this product. And yeah, the next thing you know, I end up buying it. Track your structures. Know what structures you're using to get everything done. If you have a tech stack of a WordPress site, your CRM, and everything else, see where some of these tools overlap and provide, great integrations. Yoast integrates with just about everything underneath the sun these days, which is pretty cool. And then you have also other things like, Drip for chatbots and CRM and HubSpot that can integrate into your form structure, my favorite, Gravity Forms, and allows you to put people into groups or categories and tags as well. So for instance, one of the things that I love to use is within my course platform that I'm rolling out, I've been testing out the whole idea of how do I reward people within each level? And how do I tie it to all the other sites that I have, which is another common WordPress issue. I have one or two sites and I want them to talk to each other. There are a few plugins on, the repository that allows you to really get that done. And I'm really going to hone in on WP Fusion for this one, because yes, it is one of those, my goodness, it's pricey type WordPress plugins, but it allows you to synchronize your data across so many different touch points that you can create a very seamless and consistent experience. So for instance, if you have logins and memberships, when they log in, you can request an inquiry to see what group they're in. If they're in a premium group, you can provide a pretty tailored experience to them there. If you have pages of content and, it's something that you want to be able to say, hey, you read X amount of pages or share X amount of pages, you can tie the features down into that if you have a programmer, or from the simple backend, you can just say apply a group when a person reads this page. And then, of course, my favorite, you got to create a lot of forms. So tag them in a group that says, hey, they signed up for my newsletter, but my newsletter was on a product page. Maybe they didn't buy the product. Maybe they wanted to sign up for more information. And based on my content or copywriting, they chose the option instead of buying to sign up to the list. So now I'm going to tag them on that granular level to say that they have a lead gen download. I'm going to put that in that group. So if I have another downloadable guide, I can send that out to them. And then also product interest, where I can probably tie in a coupon strategy or buy one and get your friend in for, 50% off type strategy. Also depends on the brand. So there are very, granular ways in which you can tie things in, have fun with it. You can even tie it into your user roles. So whatever tool you're using, look for the ability to really break down content, to segment and, speak directly to the different relationships of users that you're building versus just blasting everything out and thinking that everyone is on the same level. And then the final caveat that I would say that is often overlooked is synchronized marketing strategies. Whether you're doing things online, on print, or in print, or through organic, how consistent can you make it across the board so they're saying the same thing? So you're hitting those 27 to 56 to 100 and however many points that you have to reach to connect to those people that you're trying to sell your products or services to. And then within that, utilize different forms of content. I think one of the ones mentioned earlier was the Google Stories or web stories that are on your site. It's kind of clunky in the first or second iterations that I use, but it's a really powerful tool to bring another layer of immersive content that people can go through and utilize on your site and share, leveraging organic marketing methods. Even run ads to it, and it becomes, a pay property funnel that you can leverage later. I think really going off script here at this point, the things that I think break down and hurt most funnels is, that brand performance. And most people think of this as a technical thing, like, how fast does my site load, or How many images to text ratio. And while those things are greatly important to the experience, I think a lot of it comes down to the community. There are a lot of really great plugins and tools and resources that abound everywhere. But the authors or leadership may just not be that great, right? Or you don't have the support in your own community to adopt those things. And it affects the performance because now you're hung up on this particular tool versus what you can actually accomplish by maybe looking at something else that provides a range of features. And so when it comes to brand performance or that lovable factor, I think a lot of it should really be focused on what is the positive progress that we're making. Is this content that we're writing, also being able easy to read, but also being able to be easily shared, or easily, downloaded, however you're presenting it. If that's something that's positive as a touch point, maybe the person next thing you know shares it and then creates more. What is an example of a web story? So have you ever seen Instagram stories, Facebook stories, LinkedIn stories, coming soon probably to a desktop near you, Excel stories and Google Docs stories? Yeah. If you're seeing stories on any platform, it's those little things that usually last for 24 hours there. The great power of it being on your site, especially your WordPress hosted site, is that it lives there forever. So you can tell a story and have that story keep telling itself over and over and over again. And you can track the analytics of your stories because, again, it's a property that's on your site. If you set up your Google Analytics properties correctly, you'll be able to see how deep into the stories people have got into it. That was an ADHD moment. How deep people got into the story, what slides they may have clicked out of if you had a call to action within it. This is actually really cool, and I like how simple the design is. Like, boom. I don't even know much about this field, but now I want a commercial 3D rendering because, yeah.
Now
So you get the point.
Now I'm gonna have to share the screen and share the link while you talk.
Yeah, I mean, it was really simple, and I think it was 1, 2, 3, 5 or 6 slides, right, in that story. So yeah, a story, I guess, on your own site is a pretty much all-inclusive experience that a platform doesn't really give you. Wait, that's not the story. Wait.
No, I'm just pay no attention to the menu, but I'm just trying to
got you
visuals. I'm trying to give some visuals here to your presentation since your notes are down, but don't mind me. This is Web Stories, by the way, by Google. So I always start, if you ever want to learn about a subject and you already have a WordPress site, sometimes the best link you can start with is the WordPress plugin that powers the thing that you want to learn about. I think sometimes it's the best. Learning how a plugin integrates WordPress with that thing you still have to learn is sometimes the fastest way to kind of get a concept wrapped around your head. And that's why I'm pulling up the Web Stories link that was provided in chat by Taco. And Brian apparently also created something there too. But I'm sorry, David, I didn't.
Yeah, his is nice. Oh no, you're good. That actually made me think about what I was gonna cover next. Which I want to touch about this little web story that you guys are seeing. Simplicity is one of the also best parts of the performance experience. Because you have a lot of people like myself who may be looking at a screen all day long, looking at all of these different lines of code or whatever. And at the end of the day, they just want something that simply delivers to them the information right, simply where they need it in the palm of their hand. Boom, done. And it also allows you to introduce a new layer of storytelling into your brand, which for those that aren't aware, the historical part of your brand, the curation, the storyline, all of those different things, they tie into how people think and view your brand later on. So Alicia Rose asks, St. Rose, is there a difference between this and a slider? I can't see one from this example. Yes. The biggest thing is, while it looks like a slider, it certainly is definitely not. Sliders have been the bane of my internet existence for as long as I've realized, because they're kind of clunky. You can only put them in one place if you have, a site or something. Web stories, there's probably a couple platforms additionally that if you don't have, let's say, a WordPress site, which I don't know why you wouldn't, you can create AMP, stories and web stories through them. But within your site, it gives you that extra ability to display your brand, showcase a story, give clickable content to say, hey, here's how you can purchase this product, right? You remember that little shoppable thing that Instagram released, and you have to have X number of like things hooked up to get it. It's very simply done here out of the box, especially if you have something like WooCommerce already integrated into your site. You can throw them right into, well, not literally throw them, but guide them gently right into a nice checkout process, right? Or sign up process if it's a newsletter. And yes, thank you for sharing this article. Unless you're like a university that's really, or school that's, benefits from the sliders, people don't want to stick around and use them, but they will tap through a story. They will watch, things pop up on their screen, especially since it's designed for that vertical layout that people are, already accustomed to, which sliders don't really lend themselves well unless you're, again, custom programming. And no one has time for that anymore, apparently. So, moving the internet forward, use Gutenberg or, a good page builder. But back to the point, right? So at the core of your brand, I think it's very easy to think about it this way. Hold on, another question. Is it going to be more adaptive for the mobile device? It is literally built for the mobile device experience right out the box. Any phone that you're holding vertically like this, right? You got the story. And actually, hold on. One thing, if you're an Android user that I've been seeing is in your Google, or if you use a Google News thing, they've been actually featuring stories in the carousel from different sites, whether it's for recipes, whether it's, so here's one here for French macaroons, right? And it literally gives me this whole thing about like, yeah, and it tells me I should tap next or back. Story right there in the Google News experience. Snapchat is a platform that I've seen has been doing this. You can probably find it as like an Instagram guide or something later if you have that capability. But yeah, to be able to see basically your content from your site served up in Google News, you would have to jump through a few hoops if you're using another platform, like trying to tie it into Instagram and Facebook and pray someone shares it out. You can't get a link to share that story out of the platform. You can't get a direct link to your slide. So you see how it gets complicated there. And we don't like complicated in 2021. No, we want to be, marketing and sharing the love behind all the things that we're doing, right? Like, you got a cool product, here's my cool product. Oh, and look, Shopify, right? But use WooCommerce.
What's Shopify? I don't know what that is. There we go.
I don't know. It's like this thing that I keep hearing about, but like if people just use WooCommerce, they would be like, wow, I've been missing out my whole life on such an amazing experience.
Hey, Google pushes the WordPress angle here first and probably the hardest out of all of them. If there was a way I could describe this, first of all, if you're not on Instagram stories is where this all started. I mean, in some ways, I do personally consider this to be kind of like a slider, but it's more useful. It conveys better content than any slider that you could probably imagine in your head. Ellis just says it's sequential. And look at the search results that you get. I mean, it's been recent, but this is what I believe there was a graphic in here that shows like they're starting to show up in search engines like this, or I should say in Google like this. according to Google, you own the content. It does reach higher and it's fully customizable. So, Instagram stories are for Instagram, but for obviously Google stories and the Google plugin, like we were talking about before, this has the ability to reach. It's kind of like a schema, it's kind of like the concept of a schema. Feel free to anybody stop me if how wrong I'm here or how wrong I am here. But you type in a recipe, you could get a link to the recipe, or you can get the beginnings of that same recipe, which if you've ever searched for recipes before, oh my God, it's like you got to get through somebody's dead grandmother's dog story before you actually get to the recipe itself. And Google search is, for all the right things that Google search does do, it tries to give you at least the hint that there is a recipe on this page that you have to go through like millennium of history of somebody who's writing it to get to. This is kind of like, okay, instead of a recipe, you're getting a picture and some text that stand out and hopefully give you that better engagement and better content. And like you said, you own these versus Google's trying to scrape them or whatever it is they're trying to do. So anyway,
Google stories are permanent until you delete them, or for some
Rob
reason you
says
get
that
it removed because
Instagram and Facebook stories, according to Rob or in the chat, is only good for 24 hours. So, like a Snapchat type of thing. If anybody's he's asking, are Google stories temporary as well? And
I know they're permanent.
Yeah, because it's kind of you use the WordPress plugin to create them, and the Google pulls that information off the site when you hit a certain search topic or term. I would think on that. So I'm sorry, Dave, let me let you finish.
Oh, you're good. I like the assist. Gives me time to think. So yeah, there's something Brian mentioned, which I think I'm gonna end and cap things with there. Google moving from a search engine to a discovery engine probably happened, tell me if I'm wrong, maybe 6-7 years ago. Probably before, whenever they decided that they were going to do the whole knowledge base thing or knowledge graph, then Facebook then copied that and was like, oh, we're going to do our knowledge graph or whatever. But then they really accelerated that when they said everyone should have their own version of Google in their hand or in their pocket or on their phone or wherever they decide to have it. And I think this speaks to how your brand translates across different channels. There are a lot of emails that I've gotten from, the email funnel list, and they are horrible in dark mode, right? They don't translate well to mobile. They're, if I click a link in it, it takes me to a website, and then I have to download an app to do this thing. I don't want to do that, right? Most people do not want to do that. So the easier you make it to find, discover, experience, share, it's the easier life is for you to actually dig deeper into the relationships with your customers, to know the different segments, to understand who it is that you're speaking to and what it is that they need. And in a way, you provide content and services that are almost just in time or in real time of when they have that need. Because you put a lot of time into researching and doing the upfront work into making sure that it's out there. And if you're consistently posting and you're consistently doing things, it's going to showcase those things a little bit more to say that you're a recommended or a relevant source based on how people find you. So the equation that if you want to figure life out and make it easier with is, well, who am I as an individual, right? What are my values? What is my vision? What are my interests? And what are the communities that I'm in that support these things? And how are they helping to make the world better? And where along these lines do I have products or services that could be offered up into the marketplace? And that's literally how you make a lovable brand. Always at the center of it is, love and figuring things out the best way possible, but also taking the time to listen and apply empathy to the different stages of where people are and what they're doing. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy.
Sure.
I'll be dropping some goodies tomorrow about all this stuff so you can download it.
So I real good question here, because I always like tangible
Yeah.
things. I like things I can touch and
Ooh,
will allow me to
yes.
touch them. So the list is very short. But one of the things here is, like you were talking about, one of the things that you were talking about was reusable content, or content
Yes.
more than one location to well, I may be paraphrasing this incorrectly, but you create it here. Can it be shareable? Can it be used in other places? Is there any tools that can help someone kind of determine that? Like I'm trying to avoid someone having to create one of those cork boards with all these pieces and having to draw strings, like conspiracy theorists do. Oh no, I can create this, but I don't know if this can go with this. So what tools what tools or techniques briefly would you use? I'm mainly looking for tangible tools or articles or something along
All
those.
right, so this, I'm gonna give the easiest one that I like to go for, right? So everybody's phone could take a screenshot, right? It's like the easiest thing that everyone could do. So most of my content starts out literally on Twitter, right? Starts on Twitter and then either ends up on Instagram or LinkedIn or in a fleet or something of that nature. It's pretty fun because all I do when I see like tweets getting a certain amount of traction, or I look at the analytics and I'm like, oh, wow, that got a bunch of views. I'll screenshot that because I know there's a little bit of traction behind it. And maybe what's missing from it is a call to action or something to get people engaged, right? It may have just been a thought. And I know that, let's say, Facebook or LinkedIn is really great for engaging and starting a discussion outside of Twitter, right? Now I'm moving over to those platforms I posted. I'll probably use, actually, I'll tell you exactly what I use. Adobe Photoshop Mix, right? And I may overlay like that tweet on top of an image that I've taken some time before, post that on, feed, drop a little caption with it. And that's literally it. From that, I've been able to generate, or roughly generate each month, well over 30,000 impressions on Twitter. Which has led to everything from speaking engagements to, fun stuff that happened in life, clients that I never thought that I would have worked with, some that I cannot share because NDA. And then this one that is actually on your screen right now, the WP Twitter integration lately, allows you to do tweet storms or Twitter threads right from your WordPress site. And I wish I could find the one that I did some time ago. But basically, you can drop an image.
Mm-hmm.
You can take an image, or you can write out a whole, very quick blog post, and then have that post as a thread with the native capabilities, if you're using the Open Graph technology, right on your Twitter stream. And the most amazing thing that I found about that is, like, if I have an image or a checkout thing that's linked to that, I can guide them right into it right from Twitter without, having to take them into another third-party app to bring them somewhere else. That's pretty neat. This was actually, if you're looking for it, it's the, goodness gracious, WordPress, the official WordPress Twitter thing through Jetpack. Yeah, it's one of those publicized things.
It's Jetpack. Are you referring to the social posting Jetpack?
Yes, but it gives you tweet storm. I don't even know how I did this. This is a good thing. It was really late one night. But yeah, it was so fun setting it up. It was actually really easy, easier than I thought it would be. And next thing you know, it gives you a little thing to say, this post was created, or, the original thread for this was created on your WordPress site. That one. There we go. All right.
Yeah, but it's embedded in Jetpack. I know there's a non-Jetpack version, but for the sake of trying to find it, this is what I'm sticking with.
Oh, yeah. I love Jetpack more lately. It sounds kind of strange, but it's pretty cool. So yeah, to answer a question, there are a couple of questions there.
So are you, first of all, are you on Facebook? We already shared your main site, but are you on Facebook?
Yes, you could find me at David Yar. Just put my name in there, and whichever one pops up with my mug, you'll see it. I have a Facebook page I rarely update. You'll mostly find me on Twitter, probably Instagram, but mostly on Twitter or my personal site. And let's see.
Or somebody here asking if they have a travel blog.
Travel blog.
Yeah, if they were about to do stories,
Why would I do
is that too redundant to have stories and have blog posts about your travel? Can you over brand yourself that way? Or is it
You
not?
know, you really can't. I think Generation Z has been teaching me a lot of lessons about this. They're impressive. Because like incorporating your brand when you're talking about it, like let's say golfing, for instance. No one's actively talking about Nike each and every time, but it's just that little simple mark, right? It's there on the shirt, it's there on the hat, right? They may have, a brief ad that passes by. It's very simple. If you love what you do and you have the solution to something, you're going to guide people to where they find it or where they should be able to find it. And to answer your question, why would I do stories if I'm already telling a story in my blog? Let's say you've written out an entire blog post about how great your trip was 3 years ago before the pandemic, because you're being mindful of everyone and not traveling during the pandemic. And you're jotting down all these great experiences of everything. Yeah, viewability. But now you're missing the possibility of a much shorter story that most people won't read the full thing to. They may not want all the words. They may just want the pictures and locations of the top places that you ate at that you enjoyed, right? It may be the top places to take the best pictures if they're a photographer. The top places to propose to someone. So it gives you a whole new realm of ability to tell stories on top of the story that you have, to break down the story, like the repurposing thing from earlier. So blog is a meal, blog, podcast, or whatever. Here's how you'd use it for a podcast. You have a full-length podcast, and you could take a 30-second clip and do a background image and put the audio over that. Maybe that's a story that you can upload as a content type. You could take that same piece of story or content and upload and repurpose it in your Facebook or Instagram story. And now it's a media type that you've used there. And you could probably take that and put into a post or put into a reel and tell people where to find it. And now you've created constant ways to keep having content going. Yep, that's a good example as well. But you have this way to keep content going to the point where your content is just creating itself. You don't have to think about it. And your biggest problem is jotting down all the ideas that you're trying to keep track of versus trying to painstakingly build out a content calendar. So yeah, creativity is a lot easier because you're basically just shaving off all the excess of what's already in creation. Versus trying to completely build something from the ground up, which is how most people tend to take it and then end up failing. But yeah, make it fun, make it lovable.
So if the takeaway from Taco's talk was, well, there was a lot of takeaways, but I can summarize it in terms of paying attention to what Google is doing this year and make sure your site is well written and performing well. And then Valerie's was, being aware that connections are what drive us, and that your connections needs a certain amount of times to connect with you. And then you need to know how much that connection is worth. What is the one takeaway after I go to bed at my 9:30 bedtime tonight? Should people be keeping primarily in mind for their brands, if you wanted to summarize anything up in the past 20 minutes?
Keep it simple and loads of empathy as you engage with people along the process of delivering your product or service.
And apparently something to do with stories. That somehow has littered our timeline a little.
Tell more stories.
What's that?
tell more stories about your brand. Yeah, I guess the little things that you may overlook, the behind the scenes, all that fun stuff, what you're learning along the journey, they actually give more insight into who you are and what you do, a lot more than a well-structured brand campaign will ever do. For some people, some people love that kind of stuff. And this is why TikTok is kind of the way it is. Just feels natural, unnaturally natural.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I was about to say how natural we can end there, but I can take on natural as well. David, I want to thank you very much for all your insight into branding. I think it kind of fit well with the other presentations on this magical journey we're going on here this evening. Well, it was magical until I took those pills. And what I want to do now is take a pause and just mention that our dry t-shirt contest winner was Megan. I don't know if Megan's still here. But I do have your email, Megan. I don't want to sound threatening, but I do. So I'm going to try to reach out to you, and you've won a prize from Google, from GoDaddy Pro, one of our sponsors. I think it's an actual real prize too. It's either a gift certificate or it's something real. I mean, it'll come into you through the mail. It won't be a cat in a box, like that I know. But other than that, it's the sky's the limit in what they'll be sending you. So congratulations, Megan. If you're still alive and still awake, feel free to ping me right now in chat, make it easier for me to get a hold of you. Joe Simpson is on the line. We have a caller, first time caller, long time listener, Joe Simpson. Joe is actually going to be speaking at this conference. And as much as we like to hear a few seconds about you, Joe, I would like for you to tell people about WordFest a little bit and kind of summarize it in the next minute or two, just because most people here probably have not heard of it and it's coming up pretty quick.
Certainly, certainly. Hey, Dave. Hey, everyone. Joe Simpson here in Castaic, California. WordFest is going to happen beginning January 22nd. It's a 24-hour celebration of anything and everything WordPress. So it's going to go across all the time zones. I think it's going to start in the Asian time zone and finish up here in the States. I'll be speaking on an accessibility topic and looking back at a project that I worked on with this incredible team of WordPressers in an accessibility competition. It's a free event. And the great thing about it, it's for a charity that supports remote workers, and especially those remote workers in the WordPress space.
And we have a link dropped into the notes right now. What are you speaking about again?
On accessibility and how we collaborated as a team. The interesting thing about the project was each year, Nobility, which is one of the leading accessibility groups in Austin, Texas, they put on sort of a hackathon. We had, I think, 35 teams that were building sites for nonprofit organizations, and we had to build them based on accessibility principles and practices. So they had to have certain color contrast. They had to work a certain way semantically. So it was a great way to work towards a specific focus. But the other cool thing was that we were all individuals, 6 solopreneurs brought together to collaborate on the project. So that was part of the fun too.
Yeah, I would love to have somebody come on this program and, well, pretty much take it over. But second to that, we talk about accessibility. I think a lot of times we grab a WordPress theme and throw it online. And we talk and we hear about accessibility, and almost the first thing we think about is, well, anybody in a wheelchair can access my website. No, that's not what accessibility, well, no, not really. Go sit in the corner. Accessibility means so much more than just being able to read your website. And even reading your website is a leap of accessibility in of itself, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not blind, or this person's not blind. Well, maybe you're using a color they can't see. I think 1 out of every 10 men is colorblind in some way. Mm-hmm. According to my wife, I am all different kinds of colorblind based on what I wear outside in public, but I still have to get a doctor to confirm that. But if it's 1 out of 10 men are colorblind, then it just goes to show you like how many different ways people need accessible websites, especially on mobile devices. So if anybody has a friend who works for cheap, i.e. free, wants to come in and talk for maybe 20 minutes about accessibility and what to think about, because that market out there exists and it is something you should be doing, and it benefits all of us anyway. Even if you have perfectly working body parts for the most part. I won't say which one of mine doesn't work. That's a different discussion, but wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Of course.
Not about me, about the accessibility thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't want to share any of your secrets or deep, dark secrets. I know here, one of the cool things about what's going on here in Southern California is there's someone who's sort of a figure that everyone's sort of gravitating to in terms of accessibility. Her name's Sumner, and I know Alicia's on the line. She was part of our team. Alicia and I were part of the team, but Sumner is sort of the spearhead that's got everybody excited about learning about accessibility. And so we're just trying to do anything and everything. I think last summer it started with us participating in Joe Dolson's WordPress Accessibility Day. So we've just been looking in every direction. So I know a few people that can come in and speak. I can talk to her for you. If you'd like.
Taco, what is the thing about accessibility equals SEO? Is there a direct, is it, what connection is there for that?
Well, as we stated, Google's mission is to make all the information in the world accessible and useful. So in that, it already says that accessibility matters. And then if your site is usable by more people, it will rank better.
Yes. So there you go. There's an incentive.
If you build a page that's semantic, that loads fast, it'll rank better. So that's what we all want. And don't we want more people to buy our products or to see what we want to offer? So it's all logical.
To the next generation. Well, excuse me, Joe, there's too many J's in my head right now. Thank you very much for showing up on
No problem.
And you didn't make me a liar when I said there was somebody on the West Coast here tonight. I was taking a chance.
There's a couple of us lurking in the background.
Oh yes, this is the most attention I'll get all week. Adult attention anyway. I spend most of the time with my kids. Thanks very much. Please remember to go check out WordFest. WordFest, I believe, is a free conference as well. And like you said, I think it's a 24-hour deal. So, we're not asking anybody to blow their bedtime, but when you wake, you can always check in while you're working on, I think it's the 21st. So that would be
22nd. It started, for us over here in this time zone, it'll start on the 21st and end on the 22nd our time.
Yeah, stupid. When they start putting people on Mars, developers are going to have a cow with these dates.
One last thing, the cool thing about the site though, is that when you go, it'll choose your time zone and you'll be able to see the conference in your hour. So that's easier for you. It helps you plan.
Well, speaking of time, we have two things left here this evening. Thanks again, Joe, for your input. We have Gary Smith is going to talk to us for about, I forgot, Gary, how much time we gave you. I totally forgot.
45 minutes.
Okay, so
I'm joking. I see people going off the call. 10 minutes or so.
So one last thing we wanted to touch on tonight. Now we're going into the void with search engines. We know how much value people and connections are. David's shown us how to share our story, share our brand. But in the end, a lot of that has to do with the end of the day, making dollars. And if you're making dollars in a particular way when it comes to e-commerce, selling something, then Gary is going to show us some e-commerce open source SaaS e-commerce first open source solutions. And then when Gary's done, we're going to do a game show, give away some prizes, and close out for the evening. So take it away, Gary.
All right, David, I appreciate it. And I'm from Alabama, but I talk fairly fast, so I'm going to do the best I can. This presentation is designed to be about 10 minutes long and talk about the differences between SaaS e-commerce versus open source solutions like WooCommerce. And I'm going to drop my contact information in the chat. You can see it on screen there for the next half second. A lot of words here, but I don't read slides. I will be happy to send these slides to anyone who requests them.
Go ahead, Gary, go ahead and just, after this is over, send me the link and I'll share it with everybody in the email that goes out afterwards.
Sure.
So nobody has to worry about reading all of this, just listening to you for the next.
Absolutely. So why in the world would a guy who works for a hosting company talk to a WordPress WooCommerce crowd about SaaS software? Just by way of disclaimers and understanding my audience, I want to just make these points very quickly. My own experience is mainly open source. I started out with Miva. I took a brief trip through OS Commerce, note the horror emoji on that, and I've spent most of my e-commerce career in Magento. I've also built WordPress sites. I work for a hosting company. We have found it very difficult to make a dime off of SaaS products with a hosting company. So clearly my bread is buttered with open source, and that's the perspective I come from. I assume that's the case for you too, if you've been at a WordPress meeting for about 2 hours. So why do you even need to know about these things? As a business owner and consultant myself, I have made this kind of decision many times. Which platform do I choose? And I hate to break it to you, but business owners are not loyal to a platform. They just want a solution that works the best. You need to understand the choices that are in front of you and your clients. And finally, I believe in horses for courses. E-commerce covers a lot of breadth and depth nowadays, from the corner store to national brands like Amazon. So there need to be a lot of solutions out there. So very briefly, what is the difference? What are we talking about when we talk about SaaS software versus open source? Basically, SaaS stands for software as a service, and we all use these environments. We're a hosting company, and we use Salesforce, which is a SaaS for some of our internal record keeping. In terms of e-commerce, it's a built environment that you can log into, you can configure it, you can do what amounts to programming in it, but at the end of the day, it's an environment, it's a software base that you don't own and you can't fully customize. The open source model, which I would imagine most everybody is familiar with here, is software that one way or the other you have to host, install, configure, customize, integrate, maintain, and I'm going to bold secure. I'm going to come back to security a few times during this presentation. So with that in mind, what are the pros and cons of SaaS versus open source? What are the things that would tend to steer you toward one or the other? And after we rapidly look at these ideas, I'm going to take you through some questions that you as a merchant or as a consultant to a merchant might ask yourselves when you're trying to understand which way a particular individual should go. SaaS tends to excel in situations where people need a low cost of entry, especially for a non-technical user. SaaS tends to excel when people need to rapidly get some kind of website off the ground, especially if the product is kind of a startup, the product's innovative, but the e-commerce model is simple, like direct to consumer can be. You know, we're just going to put it in the box and we're going to ship it. Downside of SaaS is that with that simplicity and that sort of hood welded shut aspect to it, if you can't do what you want off the shelf, costs can rise rapidly and or you just may not be able to do what you need to do. There are ways to extend functions in SaaS. I don't want you to make that mistake. There are integrations, there are customizations available, but the palette or the menu of things you can do is often more limited. In terms of things like payment solutions, sometimes there are limited choices that the platform will let you have, or penalties for going out of network, if you will, for payment solutions. For example, Shopify will charge you a percentage if you use a different payment provider than what they offer, namely themselves. And lastly, on the con side for SaaS, a platform can ban or deplatform you, that is, take you off their platform even if you're already on it, even if your product is legal. Now, I did not have much time to show this slide, but there's a long list of things that Shopify won't let you sell. You may look at this list and look at some of these products and go, great, I'm glad they don't let people sell that. But there are so many different products that odds are you've had clients who sell some of these kind of things, at least incidentally. So not knocking their decision, but you just need to be aware that sometimes certain things that you might want to sell online can't be sold on a certain platform. Going back to pros and cons. The pros of open source, and notice I once again said low cost of entry, but this time it's for the more technical user. You can get hosting dirt cheap. You can go to WordPress.org, download the core for absolutely free. Many, many plugins are free. Even Yoast starts out free. And it can be very easily customized. And I hate this term when it comes to anything, especially development, but the sky really is the limit on what you can do if you know how to do it or can pay somebody to do it. Much more easily, more customizable. And there's a wider variety of vendors for payment and shipping. Lastly, and I think this is sometimes overlooked, Granted, you can do some really big sites with SaaS software, but open source software can run everything from the corner store to an enterprise, a national brand. Granted, the architecture of those sites is going to look vastly different, but platforms in open source tend to be more scalable. The cons, it can get frustrating for a non-technical user or client, and costs can rise very rapidly for custom features. Costs can be lumpy, and what I mean by that are you can get to a point in your business where you were doing it yourself and now you need a developer, or you were doing something with an agency and now you need to hire a team in-house. And so you can get to inflection points where the cost and complexity of your site get out of control without a corresponding increase in revenue if you're not careful. I'm going to highlight security again. I think security can be as good or better than SaaS. SaaS platforms get hacked too, but doing it right gets expensive. So we're going to move on from that. And the rest of the 3 or 4 minutes I got left, we'll talk about some things you can do when you're talking to a client that help you determine which way should this client tip when it comes to SaaS platforms versus open source. Start with the deal breakers. I didn't get much time to dwell on that list of forbidden products, but if you're talking to a cigar shop, forget Shopify. BigCommerce may still work, but tobacco products cannot be sold on Shopify. So if you're talking to the corner cigar shop, don't even talk about Shopify. On the other hand, if the site must be up in 3 days, a SaaS may be the only option unless you like all-nighters, which from the looks of this crowd, we do. Assess the complexity of the requirements. The more unusual the requirements, the more likely you're going to need to go open source custom software to make those requirements happen. Caveat, look for off-the-shelf solutions, even for what may seem like the craziest things. Because odds are, particularly in the WordPress ecosystem, if you've got a business with a particular model that they need to do something in WordPress or WooCommerce, odds are somebody's already done it or something similar. Assess the technical ability and the appetite of the client. If you are a developer who likes to use or likes to be kind of on a project basis and don't really want to babysit a site forever, even if you can build the solution, can the client maintain it or pay others to maintain it? So be careful about those things. I'm going to really hammer on this. By the way, personal observation or story, my very first e-commerce client was ISC Squared, the people behind the CISSP credential. And that may have broken me a little bit, but security has always just been paramount. So if you got one of those clients that won't run updates, they think PCI is a drug, put them on a SaaS or tell them the internet's broke, run, hide, give them the deposit back. Don't let somebody get into open source e-commerce that doesn't care about being secure. And next to lastly, assess the growth potential of the client. So there are businesses that you might double their business if things go great, or their business might go 100-fold if things go well. Understand what you're getting into and help them understand the total cost of ownership, because what tends to happen is SaaS platforms start out cheap. And again, I'm not criticizing, it's just the way they're made. SaaS platforms start out cheap and cost of ownership goes up more than open source because you typically have to pay for revenue. Like they're going to charge you transaction fees. They're going to charge you based on the revenue you're producing with that tool. Last thing I'll say about that is, on the other hand, don't be afraid to help somebody get a simple site started because you're looking at things, and if they grow, say 10 times, they're going to need to re-platform. That's part of it sometimes. And this looks like a lot of words, but I'm just going to try to summarize this last real slide. Assess the revenue importance of e-commerce to the client. We sometimes look simplistically at total revenue, total online revenue, and I think sometimes we miss the boat in understanding how important this really is to the client. Because importance, urgency really drives willingness to spend. and willingness to spend both time and money making sure the project works. If you've got a client who is really kind of in that let's give it a whirl kind of mentality, if a SaaS can work for them, that's probably the right situation, because they can prototype it, iterate it, and just have something up to see if it works. But the additional project complexity that often comes with open source like WooCommerce or Magento for that matter is more tolerable if the client has an internal culture of being tech savvy or willing to pay people who are tech savvy like you. It's a mission critical problem to solve. They're not going to survive if they don't get online, or they see a big opportunity if they can get online or do online better. And so those are the things. I almost made 10 minutes. That was reasonably close, right?
You cram so much into that, then it's like a very.
I also work as an auctioneer in my spare time.
I was
Hard to
about
believe I'm from Alabama.
I was about to say, you said that you were from the South and that but you'll talk fast. And I'm like, man, boy, I know what auctioneer.
Well, that was a lot.
Auctioneer that has not come from the South.
Question Peter Harding has about what are the base costs of using SaaS? The big two that I would recommend looking at, I'm sure there are others that are for niche things and all. I think the best two general SaaS platforms are Shopify and BigCommerce. BigCommerce plays a little bit more in the enterprise space and the B2B space, but don't overlook them. In fact, they have a very nice WordPress integration as well. I wish we were selling more of it. Both of those platforms will start you out, I'll just say very generally, less than $100 a month to run. Now, the minute you start making money, you will pay transaction fees, you'll pay credit card acceptance fees and so on, but that's gonna, at least up to a point, naturally scale with the business. So hope that answers that. Now, of course, if you're gonna do a professional job of templating it and customizing it a little bit, I will throw out a figure, which is very broad side of the barn, but I believe based on like partners I've talked to at Nexus who also do BigCommerce work, that like a professional commercial site in BigCommerce with, I'd say, middling customization, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Really fairly similar to WordPress, like a really professional WordPress build. Any other questions?
So if we did have to summarize, we'd say SaaS has less upfront cost, shorter runway, you said, so that means shorter to get online. You might need less staff or ongoing support, but it's almost like you need to fit their model pretty well. Like you said, you can't even sell some things on a SaaS platform. On the opposite side, open source, it's pretty much the sky's the limit, more or less. I mean, legally, the sky's the limit, but you just have to be more tolerable. If the more complex the project, you have to be tolerable of certain things. And you kind of reviewed that already. So, so it kind of breaks down to so it sounds like to me a lot of people could go like, well, the common products can go either direction, just depending on what you're willing to spend and how much support you need. Like if I'm selling like, like action figures or something like that, I guess really the devil's in the details, but if I'm selling cigars that have action figures pictured on them, then that's a different story, right?
And you make a great, there was a point I kind of rushed over, and Gene has a great question too, and I want to address that. I think a lot of people might look at a list of prohibited items and say, "Oh, I don't sell that. I don't sell those things. I don't sell solvents or dangerous chemicals or whatever." Well, you're all of a sudden you're talking to a client who's got a hardware store and they want to put it online, and 90% of those things may be fine, but they sell those little propane tanks for the Coleman stove. Can't do that for whatever reason. Gene's question has to do, does Stripe and PayPal block you from selling certain items? Are there other options that are a little more open? The short answer is yes. They are not I think as highly restrictive as the long list I flashed by there about Shopify. We pick on Shopify, frankly, because they have a relatively long list of prohibited items. Every card processor has certain things that they either won't do or they will rate you very high if you want to do them. I'll use an example which may feel a little unsavory, but I'll still just say it out loud. We're all adults, adult goods. Just sexually related products, for example, often there are processors that won't handle those kind of goods, and they're not really, they don't care morally about the products. It's the risk factor. It's the, gosh, honey, you looked at the Amex and you saw that. Oh, that must be fraud. I'll do a chargeback. You know, so those things do happen. And really, honestly, and, you know, we've been through a little bit of a political time the past couple of weeks. We've heard about people getting deplatformed and so on. A lot of it just really has to do with risk and reward. I mean, just to get it to its most fundamental, it's there's risk involved in accepting payments. And if that risk seems to outweigh the reward, then they'll take it off.
And does Stripe or PayPal, did you already answer that? Because we were talking about the subject, but I don't know.
Well, the broad question, do they stop you from selling certain items? The broad answer is yes. There are certain things they're not going to handle. I don't really want to opine about what they are because I haven't researched that and I don't know.
Well, they can change too, yeah.
And they can change.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty good. So from a fundamental standpoint, again, I like to take like the takeaway from your aspect is that if you're thinking about going into e-commerce, you have two general choices. You can have, just like you kind of have like two choices with WordPress. You can have somebody host your solution for you, more or less. It's what we call a SaaS, and you can have that solution more or less owned by you, and you take more responsibility, but you have greater freedom. And of course, there's price differences and the devil's in the details and everything. So it's one of the bigger questions that you ask yourself if you're starting from zero or square one in terms of trying to get an e-commerce solution together. So that always needs to be considered regardless of what you're selling. And I think, Gary, thank you very much for being able to kind of give us like, it's a path that we kind of recognize which path might be best for us. And sometimes we can go in either direction. And then other times it's clear we only logically probably only need to look at this half of the universe, and that greatly simplifies things for us instead of having to look at everything all at once, or knows like what big commerce is and should I even be giving it the time of day. And Spotify is not the cure for everything and so forth. So I want to thank you for that. And we want to actually get some feedback. I'm going to try to send a feedback form after today's meeting and see if there's more specific e-commerce topics that people would be interested in. So yeah, wow. I can't imagine. We have fit so much into this. It's kind of like me trying to get into a pair of jeans I owned when I was 18. We have squeezed so much fat into a container. I'm surprised it held for us. It was actually, it's been a very great evening. So we've come down to the last 5 or 10 minutes of our meetup where we're going to do our game show and give away a couple of prizes. The last thing I do want to make our attention is we haven't set a date for next month, but we'll send out email reminders to all the organizers. It likely will be the second or third Thursday in February. We're going to try a Thursday probably next month instead of a Tuesday. But, you know, nothing's written in stone. And, you know, like let's just take it 1 week at a time, people. It's just, you know, I feel like if I can get through the end of the week lately, it's a miracle in and of itself, both mentally and physically. One last thing I want to bring to our attention is that if you are interested in a Q&A discussion about WordPress and not only the Gutenberg, but also editing a site in WordPress as well, like if you're an agency or you're a theme builder or something along those lines, this webinar, which I'll drop a link in the notes here, is something that you may be wanting to, may be interested in, and I'll resend this probably in the newsletter as well. But I wanted to be aware of it. Our speaker from our last meetup is involved in it, and it's very informative. You talk to the people that are making some decisions, very knowledgeable in what is the latest in this full site WordPress editing? Like, things that were only done by page builders are now being done or going to be done soon in 2021 by WordPress itself. And how does that change how you're building your sites, and how, does that change how you operate WordPress to begin with? So I feel like that's a very relevant topic. So if that sounds interesting to you, what features will mostly land in the next WordPress version, talking about block-based themes and full site editing, if that sounds up your alley or parked adjacent to your alley, then great. Then you probably want to sign up for that webinar. Taco is poking me in the side here, says, is it the right moment to provide a 10% discount on all Yoast products by mentioning the coupon code? I am not reading that. What am I, sober? Okay. So if you're wanting a 10% discount, you're going to do a little work. You're going to open up the chat, and then you'll see the discount code that Yoast is given in there. Or if you want any 10%, at least write the thing down so I don't have to say it. That would greatly appreciate it. So thank you again for everybody who participated here tonight. Now, got a little gift, like we said, for those who stuck around. We are actually going to do one game show. And like I said in the very beginning, the older you are, the more chance you have here of actually winning. And since we already have Megan as a winner, our last two winners will be the first and second place winners of this trivia game show. I will share my screen in a second, but basically I'm just setting something up here right now. Okay, I'm not even sure if you're hearing music or anything. Doesn't even matter. Somebody's saying yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay, either that or you're having a seizure. I couldn't tell. So you can, on your mobile device or in another browser window, you go to kahoot.it and you're going to type in a very long zip code. Apparently they've had a lot of games since the last time I've been on. They've added a couple of digits. So let's see if I can copy and paste this into this is where Gene usually beats me to the punch, because now I've lost my chat window. This is the only game, by the way, we're playing tonight. So if you don't know how to play, then you're going to learn as we go along. So kahoot.it, and you enter number 3483180. And we'll give it a minute. While we're waiting for people to get on, I do want to thank everybody for joining this evening. We've had people from the Netherlands. We've had people from Thailand. We've had people from the West Coast of the United States, South Florida, and other parts of the East Coast as well. So and probably other people that I don't want to stalk to find out where they're from, but we've had a number of meetups here tonight. We have already lined up some speakers for next month as well. We don't really have themes for our meetups, but I'm going to say we definitely have a marketing talk. I can tell you that much. So I'd like to balance things out. So we'll probably have something complementary to that, or something a little bit more user or even slightly developer friendly. We'll also probably have the return of our WordPress top 10 presentation, where we tell you the top 10 things that everybody can get use out of. The things that's happened in the WordPress news in the last month or two. All right. I've stalled long enough. It's making sure. So, the less people join, the better the odds. And again, this is not WordPress trivia this month. Gene got tired. Gene's in. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give it 30 seconds, and then we're going to start, because if I wait any longer than that, it's going to be past my bedtime. By the way, this is going to be recorded. We usually post these on YouTube. Olivia, if you're still listening, if you want to post the link to the YouTube channel in the Zoom chat, that would be great.
Okay.
Yep, because we record all our meetups and we put it there in the YouTube channel. We also share a link. Gene has put together all the relevant links that have been shared by our speakers in the chat. He just posted it there. So it's very easy. It's like an archive. Okay. I'm so tired, I don't even remember what the number was, but 22 sounds good to me. Going once, going dos. going thrice. Here we go. Okay, apparently I need to press the button harder. The theme is old tech. What is the name of this device? Not going to say that. Okay, yeah. If you didn't get this, see a doctor because it had the name right on it. All right. Now that was just a warm up. Now let's see if we can up the ante here. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Oh, yes. It's not just how, wow, the whole WP Montclair. Wow. Okay. It's not just how correct you are, it's how fast you are. Little life lesson for you there. Here's question 2. What is the name of this device? Again, if you're able to read things on the sides of products, you have a leg up on the competition here. I apologize to the 2 people that I probably have insulted at this point. Yay me. Yes, Mount Chair or whatever it is still on top. And there's a lot of pine trees next to the 3 other. Oh no, those are up arrows. Man, I need to go to bed. Here we go. What is the name of this device? This was done at a WordCamp with a very big screen, so people probably couldn't. You go. Sony Walkman. Yes, I don't know how many people had a Walkman, but it was the iPod of its time. Yes, and
this is fairly easy. You're giving us the answers.
Yes, Gene. Well, after I got so many complaint emails about me making things too hard, it was either this or 1 + 1 = what? A, 2, C. You know, it's like I'm getting hate emails from 10-year-olds. I mean, this is, you know, I don't know. Apparently,
I'm just not fast enough now.
Yeah, somebody had. It's the battle of the internet connections at this point.
Oh man. Come on, I had to click it twice.
Excuses. Boy, I wish that was a Super Nintendo. Oh, well, everybody's really, really close. The middle 3 are really, really close. And they have still pine trees next to their names. Okay. What is this called? This is such a demanding question. Aha, the first item that doesn't have a name on it. You lose, suckers who can read. Be kind, rewind. Yes, be kind and rewind. Remember Blockbuster would charge you to rewind video cassettes, and then you're asking, what the heck is a Blockbuster? Yeah, there you go. Apparently, Montclair is older than we think here. Let's see if we can get with the next one. Remember when the days when you had a number 2 pencil would save your life with one of these? Wow. Okay. Everybody still remembers the cassette. That's good. No changes here. Kind of like my professional career. Okay, moving on. Question 7. Please someone say what I was hoping. Oh God.
Well, those are back in style now.
Yes, they are. Their vinyl has increased in value. And also you can do those real like vinyl scratches now in real life.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool because you only used to find them on 90s sitcoms. Here we go. We're almost home. Almost home, people. I mean,
A piano.
I had to make, I do this. I don't get paid to do this. So like, please keep that in mind.
I don't know, maybe the label maker would have confused me.
Elizabeth's on fire. Somebody should do something about that. What are these called?
It's a trick question.
Yeah, that is a quick.
Remember when
you know, floppy disks were actually floppy at one point.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Then they had medications that fixed that. Last question. Oh, we're in the 8,000s now. Last one. Who made this computer? Come on.
Oh, I clicked the wrong one. I'll think about the floppy disk.
Your mind is still on the floppies. All right. That's our slogan for tonight. Still on the floppies. Yeah. So okay. Well, let's see who is fast in the old tech department. Now, the guy, number 3, I know who that is. Elizabeth, that narrows that down, but let's see who we got here. Wow, gee. What, it was not really a nail biter, was it? Because we kind of knew this from the beginning, but suits me well. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and send me your emails. If you won in the last month or two, it's okay. We'll work something out, or you can donate your gift to, I was about to make a foundation. I'm going to create a foundation where we just donate our WordPress gifts and swag to us. But yes, you know the drill. Go ahead and privately send me an email or a Slack message or any communication. My email is dbisit@dimensionmedia.com. I will drop that. Apparently I'm lonely, and I'll just drop my email in any Zoom chat. But yes, thank you all for playing. Thank you for coming to the WordPress Mega Meetup this evening. One thing that we talked about doing, which I'm not sure it'll be next month or not, but we want to bring 3 or 4 people that are experts more or less in their field. And I use the experts term loosely because I'm supposedly an expert in something. And we want to utilize Zoom breakout rooms. So we want to create like maybe an SEO corner, maybe a marketing corner, maybe a development corner. We want to create 4 areas that somebody will find an interest in one of those. Do Zoom breakout rooms for the first hour, and then we come back into one big meetup room in the last half of the meetup, and then we discuss the main points that all of those groups learned. Maybe it's like it's a little task they had to do or research, and then have the people and not just the speakers kind of present what they learned and kind of share that way. We thought that was a good format. So if you're interested in that format or have any ideas about that, please let me know. Other than that, I pretty much said everything else. Feel free to, we're going to send out a survey and an email summarizing all the things that have happened here tonight. Please fill out the survey, because that way you can tell us what your questions are, no matter what the subject, like what do you want to learn about, what subjects we want to cover, and we'll try to get those people on next month. But other than that, I wanted to say thanks again to everybody for coming. Thank you for Gene. Thank you to Gene for helping me co-host this as usual. I want to thank our speakers, Valerie, Gary, Taco, and David, for being able to come here tonight. Next month is looking to be very similarly packed full of information. Like I said, at least one marketing talk. I believe if somebody just asked me for what our probable date would be, I'm going to post. It is probably, nope, that's the wrong month. It is probably going to be February 11th, probably. So that's nothing important is happening. There's no holidays happening that week as far as I can see. So February 11th, which is a Thursday, not a Tuesday. Our speaker, I don't have her information pulled up. I'll share it in an email, but we already have a really solid speaker, marketing speaker. I just don't have her name in front of me. That's a shame. I punished myself for that. But anyway, I'm gonna let everybody go. Thank you for coming tonight. Please come by next month, and please tell your meetup organizers or other people they don't have to do any work. They just need, if they want to invite their meetup group to this mega meetup, that's what we're here for. And if anybody ever wants to speak or even co-host or host this meetup is not my meetup. It's not Gene's meetup. It's our meetup. So I would love to have somebody take this position for a month and just run with it. So anyway, have a good night, everybody. Thank you all again. Get some sleep.
Go to bed, Taco.
Have a good
Get
night.
on the West Coast.
Yeah, just getting started. All right, see y'all later.
Bye. Be safe.